Well, this is me at 7 o'clock in the morning. Very stuck to put it in my own. The blue line is because I thought I'd let my pups explore while I tried to figure out how the hell I'd get out of here. The day had started out great. I got out of the house early, 4:20 a.m. to be exact. I had my coffee. I had my cameras. I had my dogs along. And I had no idea where I was going, which is, of course, how I like it. I just follow the lens wherever it takes me. But today I had to get home at a reasonable time as I had a doctor's appointment to get to, so I knew following the lens wouldn't get me too far, at least not today. Before we really get going, let me introduce myself. I'm Mark Schiemann, and I'm lucky enough to live in and to explore one of the most beautiful places on the planet, the Cariboo. And for those that are new and haven't already watched, I spend a great deal of time following the lens, going out one's door in the pursuit of finding stuff to photograph, whatever and wherever that may be. You never know what you'll find unless you go out there and look. But, getting off the beaten path and following the lens means that, it means that the path is not always easy to follow. It can sometimes be a little steep. Isn't it?
Yeah.
Or the trails can get, a little narrow. Get a little narrow for the Jeep. Actually, it took me a while to extract myself out of this one. And, of course, there always seems to be something blocking my way forward. Man, you can get a little wet. Or a lot wet. And this year, we've definitely had more rain than we usually get. And, don't get me wrong, I'm grateful. We definitely needed it. The Cariboo has been way too dry the last few years, and the next rain has helped lower the risk of forest fires. Yeah, I have to admit, it's been a nice break from worrying that my whole area is going to burn down at any time. Having said that, all this rain mixes with the dirt and most of my back roads and trails start looking like this. And I'm being honest with you, as per the title, this has really become kind of a season of mud. Of course, getting out and exploring is definitely worth tackling a little bit of mud. And honestly, a lot of the time, mud can even be kind of fun. But it does make getting around the backcountry a tad more difficult. And I know for some folks this kind of mud is just nothing. I mean, it's not that nasty swamp mud and competition mud bog mud, and logging trucks and tractors deal with this kind of stuff every day, but when you're doing your best to spot wildlife or anything out of the ordinary, slipping and sliding around makes you pay attention to just the trail and not the rest of your surroundings. So I miss a lot more than I'd like to. I mean, who knows what I've missed. Just driven by whatever it is while I try to keep Eleanor and my Jeep on the trail. I could have driven right by a Bigfoot and not even known it. And of course, anytime a trail gets more challenging, well, that means I'm going to notice less of my surroundings, so it doesn't have to be just mud. Which brings me back to this morning. Just right stuck. And with an appointment to get to. And thankfully, Eleanor, that's my Jeep, has a reasonably decent winch on her. It hasn't had a lot of use. I mean, I do try not to get stuck. And I'm not sure what's up with me today. I mean, I know this section can be bad. We've just parked and walked from here before when it's gotten this wet and nasty, but today, for some reason, of course, when I have an appointment to make, I decide to throw caution to the wind, decide that my Jeep is a super vehicle and can tackle anything without any consequences. And of course, just jump in with all four wheels.
Oh, that is not good. That is way worse than I thought.
As you can see, a less than wise decision. As I mentioned at the beginning of all this, the day started out great. I mean, I had my coffee, my cameras, my dogs were with me, and I'd had a few nice experiences already. I'd come across this gaggle of geese and goslings, which is easier to say than I thought it would be. But anyway, it was interesting to watch as the adult geese directed the goslings, with the older goslings lending a bit of a hand. And the whole structure reminded me of children going on a field trip. It's not hard to find Canadian geese in the Cariboo. Once spring has arrived, they're pretty much everywhere. And seeing them with goslings is also a fairly common event, but they usually aren't in groups quite this big. I mean, there must have been well over 50 of them. Or quite disorganized either. That's at least until fall, when they gather with the sandal cranes to get ready for migration. For today, this is a pretty cool sight. After enjoying watching the wrangling of goslings for a while, I decided to carry on. Just enjoying the rolling hills and the farms that make up this part of the valley. There's some horses and a few birds along the way, but as I came to a junction in the road where the valley widens out quite a bit, and just as the sun is breaking the horizon, I spotted these two does with their fawns in the long grass and wildflowers. The does clearly had their hands full. Or maybe I should say who's full. As it seems like their little ones had learned how to run. Like geese, it's not hard to find deer in the Cariboo, especially mule deer, which is what these four are. I mean, as I mentioned in previous videos, we have a small herd living in our own neighborhood. And they wander through our property on a regular basis, eating our apples and our grass and eating everything really. But as often as I get to spend time observing and photographing deer in the Cariboo, watching these two fawns playing while their frustrated moms try to deal with them. As you can see for yourself, it's an absolutely awesome experience, and honestly, been one of my highlights this year. As much as I like getting off the paved roads and exploring some of the harder to get to areas, playing in the mud, it's experiences like this that make following the lens so worthwhile. I mean, I live for this stuff. Makes me feel like the world's a pretty good place. That's why I do it. After sitting and watching this show, I don't know, feeling pretty good about life, to be honest, but yeah. Getting some great photos and some good video. Yeah, I thought at this point, maybe I should just head home. I mean, if I stay on this road, I'm basically going in the right direction. And I remembered I still had to get to the doctor's in a while, but honestly, I had quite a bit of time left, so I thought, I'll just follow the lens a little further, which is of course how I ended up in this mess. That and the arrogance of thinking my Jeep will go anywhere and tackle anything, even though I know better. And I don't know how many times the mud tried to pull my leg off. In defense of my own bad judgment, I made it through this section before, but it wasn't as wet as it is today, and honestly, the mud really wasn't as bad either. On the other side of the coin, I've been here before when it's been extra wet and decided to just walk instead of tackling this type of mud. Well, I've done quite a bit of mud in the spring, and I was feeling brave, and now I'm stuck and also very muddy. As you can see, it's the kind of mud that just clings to everything. Before I get myself going on, how I got myself out, because, as you can see, there are no good winch points in view. It's been a while since my last Follow the Lens documentary, and a lot has happened since then. Over and above getting stuck, of course, and besides just driving around in the mud all the time. First, last year I was following the lens, or exploring with my camera if you prefer that, far and wide. Covering a lot of the Cariboo. I mean, I was trying to see as much of the Cariboo as I possibly could, to be honest with you. And trying to follow the lens as far as it would take me. This year, it's been a little different. I mean, I'm still getting out as much as I can, but due to some of life's many problems this year, I haven't been able to go out for as long or able to travel as far as I'd like to go. So, exploring has been a lot closer to home for the most part. But, as with everything, there's always a silver lining, and not being able to go out as far has let me explore my general area in a far more detail. To find more trails and lakes and views. I found new paths into old territory, and I just found another trail over the mountain I live on just the other week, and it comes out very close to where I'm now stuck. And I have to admit that I very much enjoyed this new trail. Although, I didn't get a single wildlife photograph. Some days it's more about the trail, and on this day, other than a few cows, I didn't even see a single mammal. And given that it was mid-afternoon, I wasn't really expecting to see a lot anyway. And there was lots of birds around, and quite a few opportunities to photograph them, but either the trail was a little too rough and it wasn't safe enough to grab my camera, or for the most part, I was just simply too slow. This is really a lot steeper than it looks. GoPros do not do it justice. Anyway, even without the photos, it is called Follow the Lens, so they're obviously important, but even without the photos, I thoroughly enjoyed the mountains and mud and meadows this trail had to explore. And I found a few spots where it would be worth getting in and, taking a bit of a hike next time. If I come back early in the AM or late in the evening, I'll have a lot better luck seeing some of the animals that live up here. But even when I don't have any wildlife to pose for me, my Jeep Eleanor is always happy to take a place. And some evidence the critters have been through here, which means they'll be back. Having said all that, a lot of the back roads and trails I explore have led to some great photographs and some great experiences. And they certainly didn't all need anything as equipped as my Rubicon to drive through. The Cariboo also has plenty to explore on roads that are in a lot better shape, both dirt or paved. And of course, just walking is another great way to explore. And if you're in a place like the Cariboo and you like wildlife,
you know that shit, right?
There might be plenty in your own neighborhood.
Yeah, that's cute.
Hey, buddy.
Hey, buddy. Hi, buddy. What are you doing?
Or even your backyard. Like Q, our favorite deer. He met in my first documentary and is doing very well this summer. And the rest of the herd, of course, is also doing well. We have 7 new fawns this year. We have a new fox that I see on a regular basis. Beautiful, isn't she? And, of course, birds of all type live on the mountainside around me. In fact, a lot of what I've been seeing this year has been close to home. And not all my adventures have been muddy. On one of the days earlier this year, back in April, when I actually had an entire day to just go out and explore, I headed west and found myself traveling through Farewell Canyon. And crossing the Chilcotin River. Absolutely stunning, even this early in the year, with views that just, they go on forever. And, of course, lots and lots and lots to photograph. But just as a note, if you get out with the dogs, be careful. There are tiny cactuses close to the ground all over the place, and they hurt. Not only did one of my dogs get one in her paw, I sat down to get some photographs and ended up, choosing an unfortunate spot. Yeah, they hurt. After chilling and enjoying the area for a while, I decided to continue following the lens and see where the road took me next. And as I mentioned, other than a few short side roads that wouldn't have been too difficult to just hike if you didn't have a Jeep, and aren't necessary stops anyway, the main road is drivable with pretty much any vehicle. Just make sure you've got good brakes. It is a little steep in places, but you definitely wouldn't want to go over the edge. Other than that, it took a while to get through the valley with plenty of stops and a couple of side tracks and some light hiking, all leading to more photographs. And every once in a while, you capture something out of the ordinary. Like this photo of something I caught in one of the lakes that lies along the road. It almost looks like the back of a reptile or maybe a giant fish, but after a bit of looking at it, I think it's actually just the tail feathers of a diving duck. And having no time limit and the whole day to just explore, well, I decided I'd just keep going, following the lens, so to speak, and really just enjoying this part of the Cariboo. I covered a few hundred kilometers in total today. And like most areas in the Cariboo, it has its own personality and its own style of beauty. And aside from a few more excursions off of the main road and stops for photographs, and give my pups a few more chances to explore as well. A lot of the rest of this trip felt more like sightseeing or maybe touring than exploring. But this is important to following the lens as well. I mean, it helps me learn and create a map of the Cariboo in my head, and when I come back next time to explore a little deeper into this area, I'll have a good idea of what to expect. It's definitely nice to have a little foreknowledge if you're going to get off the beaten path. And just a few notes of interest before I move on. Even in April, in the desert, well, you can still find at least a little mud. And even though for me this was heading southwest, and even though it was April, many of the lakes were still frozen. And on a bit of a side note, some of the reasons we have gigantic skies in the Cariboo is because in a lot of places the trees stay short. Not small, but the high elevations and the limited growing seasons keeps the trees from getting all that tall. Combined with the fact that a lot of the Cariboo is a giant series of mountain plateaus and valleys, which leaves a lot more room to see sky. And just as a note of caution for any of you following the lens, or at least exploring without a destination in mind, I got to this lake well into my journey, and it turns out that just a few days earlier the road was flooded. And because I have no idea where I'm going when I'm following the lens, I had no idea and ended up here. Which meant I had no ability to check ahead for road closures, which meant if the road had been closed, well, I'd either be turning around and taking the long road back or trying to find an alternative route around it. Neither would be a good option. Well, thankfully crossing was no problem. The road was fine. And I'm glad it was. It meant I was going to cross the Chilcotin River for the second time today. Before heading back to Highway 20 and then home. And what an awesome day it's been. Before I make it back to the highway and start heading home, I wanted to clarify something. I'm always talking about the Cariboo, but as you head west from where I live, Cariboo becomes the Chilcotin, eventually becomes the Cariboo-Chilcotin coast. I have a hard time separating the two. I mean, they are linked physically, historically, and through the people who live here, of course. So whenever I'm talking about the Cariboo, I'm including the Chilcotin. I'm sorry I didn't mention that in the last documentary. Having said that, if I continue heading west from here in a little over 350 kilometers, or about 220 miles, I would find myself in Bella Coola on the coast. It gives you an idea of how much more of the Cariboo I still have to explore. And I may not have had to turn around due to that flooded road, but the way I explore the Cariboo does mean that quite often I end up having to turn around. Sometimes the trail is just too overgrown. Or there's a ditch.
Well, that's a different story, isn't it?
Or it's been deactivated. And with a lot of logging roads, you get to the end and there's just nothing there. It just ends in a clearing and you have to turn around and go back.
We can't get through.
And of course, as I mentioned earlier, fallen trees. But at least you can do something about them. Or in like this case, the road has a crack in it. And it's hard to tell how deep it is, but I wasn't going to take a chance of a collapse. It's a long way down the mountain from here.
Yeah, this is getting worse and worse.
Sometimes the trail is just physically too narrow for the Jeep.
It's
Getting narrow pretty quick.
Already getting
Yeah, that's just too much for you.
And on the odd occasion, even mud's made me turn around, especially if there's no winch points. I have yet to purchase a form of anchor, so if there's no obvious winch point, they usually make me turn around. I mean, believe me, this hole is much worse than it looks, but there was a bypass a couple hundred feet back, so it made more sense to take that. And of course, even this has a silver lining. Detours can lead to discoveries. That's how I found this place last year. I was avoiding a particularly nasty mud hole.
You're gonna get stuck in there.
And I found my way back to the spot a couple of times now. Although I've come across it from a different direction every time. Not realizing this is where I was until I actually saw it again. I'm trying to slowly gather stories and history from around the Cariboo. But you know, it's hard to find information about all these old places, and there are old cabins spattered all over the Cariboo. This is just one of the old homesteads I've come across. With the Cariboo being such a large part of the gold rush, and ranchers and settlers and First Nations, I mean, there's a lot of history here that's hidden away. I'm sure lots of people who were born here and lived here all their life know all about it, and maybe what happened to the folks that originally lived here, but for me, it's still a mystery. The nice thing about finding these old places on the back roads is they're certainly not a tourist site. That's a big part of the reason they're still standing here. It's not an easy place to get to either. At least without a decent four-wheeler or dirt bike or quad or side-by-side or something, and somebody that knows where it is. These trails crisscross all over the plateau I'm on.
Oh, there we go.
A lot of these trails are older, but many of them are newer ones they put in so they could access all the burnt trees that are throughout this area.
There's tons there.
That's after the fires came through here a few years back.
All young ones.
Anyway, this is Follow the Lens, not a history show, and so I won't go too deep into this stuff.
Stuck in this one?
These old buildings make for great photos, and more than that, they attract wild animals to set up shop, either in or nearby these buildings. There are some marmots living under the main cabin, and there are birds all over the place up here. Northern flickers and killdeer and grouse.
Great picture. And he's
In fact, I got the closest clear shot of this mountain bluebird my wife had spotted. It was sitting on the log of a collapsed roof on one of these buildings, and it just kind of hung out as I snapped off a few. And we got to hear a bull calling in the herd. That's always cool if you're not a rancher. It's not something you see all the time. Also a good place to just take a break, enjoy a beautiful day. Surrounded by all the things that make exploring great. I mean, scenery, history, wildlife. And no one around. I mean, no one. We were here for a couple hours and just nobody but me, my beautiful wife, and my pups. And just as a note, I have a cheap GPS on my windshield. Just a road version with no off-road features. And when I'm on a trail, it generally just shows me a white background and says, well, what direction I'm heading. Heading northwest, for example. And I'm good with that. Following the lens is about exploring and going wherever the feeling takes me. I don't have a destination, so I don't need to know where I am. So why do I have a GPS at all? Well, for two very important functions. It leaves me a bunny trail so I can always find my way back. I know if I turn left or right at every junction, I can just follow my trail and always get back home that way. And it lets me keep an eye on my speed without having to look down. That way I can keep my eyes out for wildlife, or other cool stuff, or just on the trail if the conditions warrant that. And as a safety backup, I carry one of these, a Garmin, which, when accompanied with your phone, works as a sort of trail GPS. But that's not why I carry it. As I said, I kind of like not knowing where I am.
long way, Shelby.
I carry it for three very good reasons.
Come on.
The first two are that with a monthly subscription, it allows my wife and I limited texting back and forth. Or more with a higher subscription, of course. And it also allows my lovely wife the ability to see where I am on a map. At least if she's worried about me.
What are you doing?
But more importantly than all that,
Yeah, I'm sorry.
it has this little SOS flap, and if I open it and press the button, I can be rescued from whatever I need to. And nobody's sponsoring me, nobody period, let alone Garmin. But I still recommend this product or a product like it if you're going to go out there and get out where it's a little sketchy. Like a marshy, muddy area, Anywhere you're going where, you might get stuck. And then have to get back out, so. And what if I somehow hurt myself? Well, you get the idea. It's just a smart thing to have. Anyway, before I get back to talking about mud, which I obviously like talking about, but before I get back to talking about mud, I have one more experience to share with you that I think is worth a retelling. As I mentioned, I've had to stick a little closer to home this season, and there's multiple areas run fairly high up along the Fraser River and within half an hour or so of my home. And I really enjoyed exploring them. As high above the Fraser as I am, I'm still at a lower elevation than most of the Cariboo is, making for a bit of a microclimate. And spring arrives here just a little sooner than the rest of the Cariboo. With mountain bluebirds and robins, cranes, tree swallows, western kingbirds, hawks, and this kestrel, and a rather photogenic two-toned black bear. A glimpse of this magnificent grouse. Bulls and cows from surrounding ranches. Lots of deer, including this group of bucks in the wildflowers that had me filming in slow motion. And of course, stunning views as you look down the steep slopes toward the Fraser River. But even with all that, it was on a day when my wife Amanda and my pups came along, and we decided to hike to the top of this vertical bluff that hangs high above the Fraser River, complete with its own caves. That's when I spotted we spotted probably one of the most amazing things we've ever seen. There's a road to and a place to park about halfway up the bluff. Followed by a relatively short but very steep hike up to the top.
Maybe less than you, but still not in great shape.
Now, you probably noticed that I'm missing part of my leg, and
Well, take your time.
as much as I pretend it doesn't affect me, it does make steep climbs difficult, and
Oh, the purples, yeah.
as the one foot is on its toe all the time, and I get very little grip.
Oh. Man, it sounds pretty nice of you.
I'm not trying to complain about my leg, but I am going to use this as an excuse of why I didn't get better photographs of, well, what happened next.
We are almost there, I think.
Oh, and
Yeah.
Shelby Bear.
I'm the one that wants to be up.
About 2/3 to 3/4 of the way up, I needed to sit down and take another break. My right leg is really doing most of the work. As I sat down and looked over through the trees, I could see an eagle flying along the mountain across from us.
That's a nice view too, huh? Look, flying. You see it? It's huge. Fuck, that thing's giant.
Oh, yeah, look at that.
Come on, focus.
I really wish there was more size reference here,
It's freaking.
and that I had gotten a little clearer photos. But this bird, seriously, it was absolutely gigantic. You can make of this whatever you like, but I'm calling this a thunderbird sighting. I've photographed bald eagles and pelicans and ospreys, and hawks, and all kinds of large birds. And I have a good idea of how big an eagle should be at this distance and through a 600mm lens. And this was a gigantic eagle, way larger than it should have been. Surprisingly, this isn't even my first sighting of a thunderbird. I had an encounter about 20 years ago with a giant bird that looked almost identical to this one. And that was in the Cariboo as well. But unfortunately, I didn't have a camera with me that time. Now, what this bird is, I mean, at least visually, it's a golden eagle. And it should have about the same wingspan as a bald eagle does, but with a slightly higher mass, as golden eagles are about 20% heavier than a bald eagle. The wingspan for both of these eagles should, well, be about the same, around 6 feet. But I'd swear this eagle's wingspan was, well, it's more like 12 to 15 feet, and Honestly, I'm not even kidding. And however, even if my estimate's a little bit off, an eagle with a 10-foot wingspan, that's still a gigantic eagle. As we carry on up the trail, I'll tell you my theory on what we just saw. I think there's a recessive hereditary gene for giganticism in the North American golden eagle population. Or at least the caribou one. Seeing a golden eagle is already a far rarer experience than seeing a bald eagle. And if just 1 in 100 golden eagles have giganticism, well, this would explain a lot of the thunderbird sightings.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Not only in the Cariboo, but throughout BC and North America. And through recent history as well.
Oh, there it is.
And it would still explain why it is so rare to see one, and even rarer to get a photo. And of course the terrain makes getting a clean, clear photograph really quite difficult. Not to mention there are a ton of places for a giant bird to hide in the caribou. Anyway, that's just my theory. Maybe someone out there should check out if golden eagles carry a recessive gene for giganticism. However you want to look at it, we just saw a thunderbird. As we reached the top, we both realized neither of us had grabbed the bear spray and was still down the jeep.
I do want to go down.
Probably not the smartest thing when we're on top of a bluff with very few options on where to go.
There's birds.
So we took a short but well-deserved break, watched the cliff swallows darting in and out from the cliffside, hoping that giant eagle would come back, but it never did. So we just took in the incredible views up and down the Fraser River, and the trip down, because of my leg, was even more difficult than the way up. But
Yeah, I'll take you down with me.
What?
I'll take you down with me.
But we got back to the jeep with no incidents, and no bears. And I have to thank my lovely wife for taking the dogs. I mean, they help pull you on the way up the hill, but on the way down, they're definitely a handful. We packed up and we headed off and continued following the lens, and even though it's nice and dry and mud-free here.
The day before yesterday, on Saturday, I was like, wow.
But we still found plenty of mud on the way home. Which brings me back to the anchor of this whole documentary, being stuck. As I said a few times now, I had an appointment to get to, and with no obvious winch points in view, I thought maybe I'd give this clump of small trees at least a test try. But as I started to put my strap around the base of them, I had my doubts. The soil around this tree was pretty saturated, or wet if you prefer. I figured maybe I wasn't quite as stuck as I thought, and it'd still be strong enough to pull me out. But I threw the winch control through the window with mud still trying to pull my leg off, before grabbing my dogs and putting them in the jeep and out of harm's way. And jumping back in while trying to keep the interior somewhat clean, which was a complete fail. But once I started tightening the winch, I gave up almost immediately. Maybe I wasn't going to make my appointment. It was pretty clear that this bush didn't have a good enough purchase on Mother Earth to get me out, so don't worry, this little group of trees was none the worse for the wear. So I disconnected my strap and went looking for a better winch point. And I know I should purchase myself an anchor system of some sort for these occasions, but camera gear is expensive and I have a limited budget, and I do know the trick about burying this spare tire and using it as a winch point. And I of course carry a shovel, but if you ask me, that is last resort stuff, especially with an appointment to get to. Thankfully, a little further down the track was a dead tree broken off at about the 10-foot or so mark. The only two issues being, do I have enough cable? And how scratched up am I going to get from the branches, brambles, and wildflowers growing up around it? Which reminds me of another one of the issues, or problems, I guess you say, season of mud brings with it. First is, if you're going to go out and play in this, well, you're going to have to use these. Never been a big fan of washing my trucks, but you can't avoid it for very long. And every time you go out, you start collecting this. So, I spend a lot more time than I like doing this. That and immersing your driveline in, well, it starts out as wet sandpaper and then dries onto a nasty cement-like substance means there are a lot more repairs, replacements, and bolt overs than would have been without a season of mud. So why do I do this? Why follow the lens through a season of mud? When I miss so many photographs, because even at 10 kilometers an hour, I still have to watch the trail, slipping, sliding. I mean, why do this when 10 or 15% of the time the trails just lead to a dead end? Or are too dangerous, or are too overgrown, or just disappear altogether. I get the branches down my pane on a regular basis, and the extra maintenance and repairs. Well, the answer is to all that is easy.
Steeper than I thought it was. Sorry, girls.
Just because it leads to sights and experiences like this. And it leads to trails and challenges like this. And of course, I get to spend a lot of time hanging out with these kind of guys. And you know, of course, there's all the small things and cool things and odd things you find as well. And most of all, it leads to fantastic days like this one, where my pack and I explored our favorite road.
What's that?
Which goes through my favorite valley.
There was ones that were lumps and there was ones that were...
And always seems to give me plenty to film and photograph. And eventually turns from paved to dirt. And after passing through the valley and past all the ranches and open country, catch some of the things worth photographing. It becomes one of my favorite trails. Complete, of course, with a little mud.
No problem.
With lakes and ponds spattered along the trail side at almost regular intervals.
Oh yeah, but it's still a good place to stay.
And with more trails branching off and leading to more ponds and more lakes. Has that nice mix of challenging enough to be fun, yet easy enough that I can watch my surroundings at least at slow speed. And I can easily stop when those photographic opportunities pop up, as they always do.
Oh, another one. Oh, that's excellent. Maybe there'll be another rabbit.
And it led to here.
Yeah, let the pups out anyways.
A little lake just packed with nature and wildlife. With the early morning sun waking everything up. Which is a beautiful place to just sit and chill and wander around taking photographs. While my wife took the dogs to go and look at all the wildflowers surrounding the lake. A little coffee, a little rest, then a little food, and then more photographs. Both here and on the way home. Which, I mean, what an awesome day. Not too hot, not too cold, lots of stop. The day had started off slow, but by the time I got home, I had a bunch of fantastic shots. And some more nice additions to bird sightings. I never get tired of seeing these guys. Another reason I decided to follow the lens. I mean, days like this are they're just good for the soul. And of course you don't need a camera to explore and to have days like this, but it is an excellent excuse though, isn't it? And I get to share it with you, so. And there's so many other reasons it's worth getting up and out your door, exploring off the beaten path, following the lens.
When we stopped at the lake, it pointed us to film us.
Which you know, well, it takes me from one of the nicest days I've had following the lens this year. Back to this. But honestly, I mean, I know I can't say I'm having fun, but really it hasn't been all that bad. Especially since I had to spool out about 85% of my 100-foot cable to not quite make it to the tree. And of course, the free spool lever on my winch was locked up, so I had to use the wired remote, which meant walking back to the Jeep to get out another 10 feet of the winch cable. Talk about just enough with about 5 feet left on the spool. Then after walking back, fighting my way through the branches and brambles and wild roses and getting reasonably scratched up.
Whoa.
It was all the way back to the Jeep again. Putting my dogs back in the Jeep for a second time. I think it's about time to just pull myself out of this mud hole.
Oh, man, he's out the winch. Fuck's sake.
And what a feeling of relief as my winch pulled solid and Eleanor started to inch her way out. That broken tree holding strong. Once I was out and spooled up my winch and put everything away, I was able to cinch over to the right side of that mud hole and get by without getting stuck for a second time. And I probably should have done this instead of tackling that mud hole in the first place, but as I said, I was feeling brave today, not wise. And now that I'm free, still have that appointment to make it too, so I still have about an hour to get there, but
Alright, do we just go home, girls? Do we try?
I mean, it's going to take almost half of that to get home. And I'm pretty much either speckled or caked in mud from head to foot. And the driver's seat is the footwell, the pedals, and even the steering wheel are also caked in mud. That was going to be tight. Yeah, I think it's going to be fairly hard to get there in time. And tight it definitely was. I arrived in the waiting room about 30 seconds before they called my name. Having got home, I loaded my dogs and my camera gear. Scraped off the worst of the mud from the seat and the footwell and the steering wheel. Had a very short shower. I got some clean clothes on and I just left the mud-covered mats on the side of the driveway. And as I mentioned, I made it just in time. But I did make it. Having had an entire adventure before most people even start work. Well, summer is over and fall has just begun. We started to get rain again, and hell, we've got hail in the middle of August this year. But, well, the whole year's been weird weather-wise. Anyway, it looks like the season of mud will continue right into winter this year. So there should be plenty more adventures before the next Follow the Lens documentary. And of course, more photos and wildlife. I have no idea what I'll see next, but I guess that's the whole point of following the lens, isn't it? So, this season had a lot. Mud, and a bear, and our fox, and plenty of deer, and, well, all kinds of birds. Including seeing a thunderbird, giant golden eagle if you prefer, which, I mean, honestly, even though I have evidence and both me and my wife were there, it still feels kind of unreal, but there it is on film. And of course, there was getting stuck, which is going to happen if you're going to spend this much time on the mud-covered back roads, but that's kind of what puts the adventure into adventure photography. So until next time, get out there and follow the lens. I mean, the world's a pretty interesting place and definitely worth taking a look. And of course, thank you to everyone watching. You're the whole reason I bring a camera along with me in the first place. And thank you to everyone that lives in the Cariboo. You're making this an awesome place. And of course, like and subscribe. It really does help. And if you like the music in this documentary, there's plenty more on my channel. check it out. I'll leave one of my music videos for after the credits. So until next time, thanks again, and follow the lens.
Dragonfly hood. Oh, not now. It's like flying. It was flying still, but
Oh
right
yeah,
over
there he
the
is.
hood.
Yep.
What's the problem with an eagle who catches two fish at the same time? Well, not only does he lose his landing gear, it causes him to have some fish use. Alright, you get it? Fish use? I mean, issues? Fish shoes? Issues? Fish shoes? Alright, that was stupid, but... another bad joke. Alright, that's stupid. As always is, but hey, that's for people who stuck around till the end. Thank you.